Hello guys, welcome to this review of my e-bike 1 year later. Or maybe a better way of saying it would be my e-bike a year in review. So what's it been like after a year? How's it held up over 1 year? Well, the good news is, let's get the best thing out of the way first. It's been an absolute pleasure to ride and own this e-bike. I'll link you to my previous video that I did when I first got the e-bike, and I did a quick review of it. I said the reason I got it was because I used to live a couple of doors down from work, and then I moved to a good couple of miles out from work. I didn't want to go to the expense of buying a car currently because I work in the same town. I just don't see the point of the expense of a car at the moment. And I didn't fancy cycling in the winter months at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. Especially in the sort of damp, miserable, dark English winters. On the south coast is very miserable. I didn't fancy that, so I wanted to get something in between. I was thinking about a motorbike or a moped, and then I looked at an e-bike. And it's been an absolute pleasure, day in, day out, riding it. I don't think about cycling when I go to work. I never actually think about the actual journey, because it's always such a pleasure. Whether it's in the morning or whether it's coming home at night, in the evening, it's just wonderful just to sit back really and enjoy the journey. Again, the way it works, you slowly pedal forward. I'll show you how easy it is. I mean, this is pedaling anti-clockwise, so you would actually pedal clockwise. But basically, it's the same kind of tension in the actual pedals. There's no tension, no effort. You just slowly cycle. It will go up to the top speed. If you set it on number 4, it's about 15 miles an hour. There we go, number 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, so it could be 1, 2. Number 4, top speed's actually the 4th top speed, should we say. Or the top speed, set it on that, you go about 15 miles an hour, and you won't go faster than that unless you're going downhill. But you're just gradually turning the pedals with no efforts, and it's just like a wonderful journey. A wonderful, pleasurable ride. So absolutely so glad. It's one of the best purchases I've ever made. Certainly the best transport related purchase I've ever made. Absolutely recommend it. Absolutely. It's been wonderful. How has the bike held up? Well, I've just come back from work. It was a bit drizzly, as you can see. The tyres are okay. There's still some tread in them. I use a sort of foot pump to keep them inflated. So they're both pretty well inflated. That could do with a bit of more air soon. But the tyres have been holding up okay. I do fold it sometimes in work and put it under a desk out of the way. That's been working okay. I keep it well oiled as well. As you can see, it still looks fairly new. The only thing that's degraded to a degree is the battery, and that's an obvious thing that's going to happen over the course of time of owning an e-bike. I've read various things online, variant different accounts online of how long a lithium battery can last. Some say between 300 to 500 charges, some say over 1,000 charges. I'm roughly charging it 5 times a week, pretty much every journey I do there and back to work, maybe 6 times a week. I'm hoping at least to get a year and a half's worth of it. When I first got this, I could cycle to work on the top power setting, that's a better way of saying it, cycle to work and back 2 times, so I could cycle there, cycle back, cycle there, cycle back comfortably at the sort of top speed, and there didn't seem to be any wear and tear of the battery. After a month or 2 of use, I noticed that it was a little bit slower on the second journey, so there and back, on the second journey there to work, it was a little bit slower. The battery wasn't giving as much power to the motor. So then I started to charge it every single journey. I do from work. So there and back, I'll charge it. And that way, I get the top speed and the top whack, the top juice. I don't know why it does that. It's obviously a thing with these e-bikes, but as the battery slowly discharges, as it loses more and more power, you'll actually lose more momentum as well. It won't go quite as fast, only by a couple of miles an hour, but you'll notice it. It doesn't go quite as quick. It goes a lot quicker on a full charge there and back. As long as I can get to work and back on a full charge, that's all I need it for. My local town is probably, my local major town or city is probably about 10 to 15 miles from where I am. I reckon I could do that journey, but when I get there, I'll have to find a power source to recharge the battery, which is this one here. It comes out the back. Actually, here's the thing. I've just come back from work now. I started yesterday and came back today from work, so it was left at work overnight. As you can see, the power's saying it's still full. The battery's still full. I will recharge it anyway, like I say, because you get the full whack and the full sort of power on a fresh recharge. Reading the booklet, it does say to preserve the battery, charge it each and every time, no matter how short or long your journey. And apparently that's how you preserve these lithium batteries. I would have thought you would have to drain it near enough, then charge it. But no, if you charge it, you're basically preserving the battery each and every time. So I'll do that. So yeah, a year in review, absolutely fantastic. Never think about the journey to work. I never think, whenever I go anywhere on it, I never think about the journey. The only thing I'll be thinking is, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to be relaxing on my e-bike and looking around. And it's noticeable. People will look at me sometimes, probably think I'm some kind of idiot, when I'm sat on a bike smiling, looking around, thinking, why isn't he exhausted by this journey? It's because of this. No effort. Absolute pleasure. The only major pros and cons of it, well, here's an interesting thing. In winter, because you're not expelling any effort in cycling, if I cycled my old bike, I would arrive at work quite sweaty, even in winter. On this, because you're not using any effort, you've got to wrap it well, because you're the same temperature as when you started your journey to when you finish, because you're just not warming up with the exercise. There's very little effort you're using. On the flip side, in summertime, riding a normal bike, as you all know, we got something like 35, 36 degrees on the south coast over a few days this summer just gone. We had some horrendously hot days. I know that people from other countries will be saying that's not hot, we get worse than that, but the English heat, when you get that, it gets so humid, massively humid. It was just horrible heat over a few days, over a couple of weeks in fact we had. Riding on that is a nightmare because you just end up so hot and bothered and sweaty. This, because you're not using any effort, any hint of a slight breeze, you're actually cooling down in high heat riding an e-bike or riding this. I notice if I wanted to cool down, I'll take this for a ride along the seafront. My goodness. You were the coolest. I was the coolest person in town. In all ways, of course. Not quite. But I was the coolest person in town when I was riding this in the high heat of summer. Because any slight breeze, and you do get a natural breeze when you ride anyway, you're cooling down. And because you're not expelling any effort or using any real energy, you're staying at that sort of core temperature, but any breeze will just cool you down. So absolutely recommended in high heat. You do have to be careful with the battery in humid areas. You've got to keep that sort of well sheltered and at a reasonable temperature. And don't let it get too humid and wet. But yeah, absolutely brilliant in summer. Winter, as long as you wrap up well, you'll be fine. But just keep in mind you're not using any real energy, which is great, of course. So there you go. My e-bike after a year of review. Still working fantastic. I hope I'm not jinxing it. Hoping the battery will last at least another half a year. If I can get 1.5 years use out of a battery, that's fine, then I'll buy another. They do cost a couple of £100, so it's not cheap, but every 1.5 years, a couple of £100, I can do that. For the pleasure of riding that, I can do that. So there you go, guys. Leave your comments and thoughts and suggestions, and I'll see you soon.